Red on the yellow, 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 red on the red on the yellow, red on the red on the yellow, 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 red on the red on the yellow, red on the gula gula noninata, gula gula kirkan vata, gula gula neran vota, red on the yellow, red on the red on the yellow, red on the red on the yellow, 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 red on the red on the yellow, red on the Gula Gula. Listen to the voices of our foremothers. They're reminding us if we harm the planet, we harm ourselves. This is a song by Mary Boyne. She's a singer, a Sami singer from Norway, who I met many years ago in Geneva, and she taught me this song. It's called the Sami yoke, and it's also similar to the yodel that we have in the Alps. So in some form of way, it's a bridge, a cultural bridge between this music, between these countries, and a connection to nature. Thank you.
Bonsoir Kaylee. Ça va?
Bonsoir, Julian. And I think that's as far as my French is going to go tonight.
What a pity. Good evening, Forum Geneva. Bonsoir, Building Bridges. Ça va? Come on, we don't hear you. We thought that you were the most inspired crowd tonight at the Building Bridges. How are you doing, Building Bridges? We are here at the outset of a very exciting evening, and on behalf of every single people that has enabled this evening to be hosted here tonight, a warm welcome to you all to the second edition of Factory 17, quite a unique event that brings together the top Accelerate 2030 entrepreneurs from Africa, from South America, from Asia, from Eastern Europe, alongside Geneva, visionaries, financial leaders, disruptors, and change makers who have actually responded to their own call to adventure. Through this evening of powerful storytelling, during this Building Bridges week, our innovators will actually share their inspiring personal stories. But stories about what exactly? And Kaylee, as an environmental conservationist, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about it?
Julian, I feel like that's a big responsibility. And I think we're all here for the environment, so we all have our hand in this process. So as we know, the world is at a pivotal moment right now, where we urgently need to bring our systems, our natural systems, back into balance. For this, we believe we need to shift towards a regenerative system that recognizes the value of nature and biodiversity. Now, regenerative and sustainability, what does this actually mean? I feel these words have been thrown around these last few years, and they feel far away. And where do we even start? So tonight, we believe that it begins within ourselves. And by reflecting internally on how we relate with the natural world around us, and challenging and asking ourselves how we play a role in this in our daily actions and the ways we work. We will be hearing from 8 speakers, each from their own respective leadership fields, within shifting the financial system away from pure economic gain to putting a value on our natural ecosystems around us. They will be reflecting on their own personal journeys with the natural world and how it inspired them to be catalysts in rebalancing these natural systems. And Julian?
I guess that catalyst is the word tonight. One of the questions that we had is, we're in Geneva, mais est-ce qu'il y a des francophones dans la salle? Oui, est-ce qu'il y a des gens qui comprennent le français? Est-ce que vous pouvez lever la main, s'il vous plaît? That's quite a majority, c'est fantastique. Donc, nous allons également accueillir en français ce soir toutes les francophones qui sont ici parmi nous, ainsi que les téléspectateurs et téléspectatrices en ligne qui nous suivent sur le YouTube Live. Je m'appelle Julien Beglen et en tant que Community Catalyst au Impact Hub Genève, qui est un réseau local, régional, national, international aussi, qui est un incubateur de projets et qui amène justement un certain nombre d'histoires à être racontées. Nous avons décidé ce soir d'amener des solutions tangibles aux problèmes actuels de notre société à travers un prisme qu'on appelle les objectifs de développement durable des Nations Unies, avec cet agenda qui nous permet, entre autres, d'aborder des défis mondiaux auxquels nous sommes confrontés, de la pauvreté en passant par l'inégalité des genres, le changement climatique, évidemment, à la paix et la justice. Nous sommes aussi convaincus que chacune et chacun d'entre nous, à sa façon, peut amener ce changement dans le monde. Alors, ce que nous vous proposons, c'est d'écouter des histoires qui vont nous inspirer, mais qui peut-être, ce sera votre tour l'année prochaine de nous raconter comment est-ce que vous inspirez ce monde. Comment est-ce que vous, chacune et chacun d'entre vous, amenez cette lumière au sein de cette biodiversité. As all of our speakers tonight, it does take courage to become and be the person we really want to be on stage in front of such an important audience as well. So in the words of the great mythologist Joseph Campbell, referring to the hero's journey, he said, if you can see your path laid out in front of you step by step, you probably know it's not your path. Your own path, you make it with every step you take, and that's precisely why it is your own path. So, of course, tonight I first would like to give the floor to someone who did take a bold step, who went out of her native initial way, stepped out of her comfort zone, and is one of the co-founders of Impact Hub Geneva. I mean, in short, my boss. But joke aside, at least one of them, she would not be who she is, and she would definitely not be where she is tonight if she wasn't, in her own way, a kind of hero. So, ladies and gentlemen, Santu Boishis.
So this is not the traditional event that will talk about the urgency of action. This event is about the urgency of connection. The connection to ourselves, to our gut, that feeling that knows what to do. The connection to our friends and our family and our loved ones, to humankind, and to Mother Earth. To give you a little bit of background, we here during the Building Bridges Week. This is when Geneva is coming together to explore, to be here. We are committed to see how we can move finance to the sustainable development goals, how to bridge this gap, this multi-trillion or trillion gap that is so needed to get us where we want to be in 2030. 2 years ago, at the first Building Bridges, it was hosted at the Bâtiment Force Motrice down the road. We, right after, we hosted the first Factory 17. And we wanted to try something different. We wanted to explore this, what Julik was so rightly talking about, this stepping into, like, out of our comfort zone. And we were identifying people that had taken that path and would share their journey, so that it would also hopefully inspire others to see that this journey is not linear and it's not comfortable and it's vulnerable, actually. It's stepping into vulnerability. And this time along, we want to do the same, but we wanted to explore one step deeper. And we wanted to explore what is our connection to nature. And what does it mean? Personally, I believe in the so-called theory of emergence, that there is this natural flow, there is this universal intelligence, the way that the birds are flying, the ants are moving, the way that we interact as a planet, and that also that us as human beings are connected to this universal intelligence. And I've noticed myself in my life that when I am in flow and when I am connected, I also make impact happen at the outer level. I take action that is actually meaningful, and I guess because I was asked to say, why are we organizing? Why did I want to organize this event? And I think it's because very often I find myself not in that flow. I find myself struggling, pushing myself a lot in my head, fighting for things and being very hard on myself, but also hard on my team, hard on the people around me, and sometimes, pushing too hard and being exhausted. And so I thought, knowing that when there is flow, magic can happen, and knowing that we urgently need to get that flow of funding towards the SDGs, I thought this would be a way to try and explore this topic further. And so I started to ask around, who are people in the Building Bridges community, in the Geneva community, that are courageous and maybe have taken this step and have had this same sense that we are connected to nature, we are nature, and through actually listening into this intelligence, they've actually been able to be guided and gotten that support on their journey. And I've come across some amazing people, and I think I'm here to be equally also surprised, and this is more of an exploration. So we're more taking with you here on a journey today. Know that for many of us, it's the first time we're actually sharing our personal story on stage, so this is more we're inviting you to a journey. But I've been so inspired to come across that there are people that are, that are like-minded, and hopefully we can all be inspired tonight. So with that said, I want to give a big thank you to the team that made this possible, and to the partners as well, and welcome you all to Factory 17 2021. Thank you. And I have the honor to invite our first speaker for tonight, and that's our beloved Andre Hoffman, a friend and collaborator. He is, please come up. He is the vice president of Roche, but I think he has a much more to tell than that. And I would say, yes, your work around and your belief in this planet and in the ecosystem and the value of nature will make Andre a really a distinguished guest with us here today. So welcome, Andre.
Well, Santo, thank you very much. So I'm gonna start by telling you how incredibly intimidating this is, being standing in front of you and to. Let me tell you the truth. I was born in 1958. I'm old school. I was taught, you know, whatever you do, don't give away unnecessary information. And now suddenly Santo is asking me to take my clothes off in public. And it's going to be a challenge, and I'm going to try to do that, because I do believe, Santo, that you're absolutely right. We can only move forward on that particular journey we are choosing if we are trying to be as transparent as possible. So let me tell you a little bit about my childhood. I grew up in the Camargue, in the delta of the Rhône River. Pour nos amis francophones, la Camargue, c'est-à-dire l'endroit où le Rhône touche la Méditerranée, l'endroit un berceau de la civilisation, la Méditerranée. And there I grew up in the middle of a household that was very much influenced by science. My father was a zoologist, an ornithologist, fascinated by birds. He spends most of his days dans les marais pour essayer de protéger les zones humides méditerranéennes. And in particular, he studied migratory birds, flamingos, iconic birds. You know, how can we save the planet? How can we protect the environment by using birds? Because birds are nice. People like birds. They're pretty, and so there was a lot of conversation about this at home. But in the family basket, in the family inheritance, there was also this other thing, Roche. Roche products, Hoffmann La Roche, created by my great-grandfather, now the largest pure pharmaceutical company in the planet, and employing 100,000 people across the planet. So this sort of split inheritance, one side this love of nature and this love of science, coupled to the responsibility coming out of ownership of a business of the size of Roche, has, I think, impressed my life. And this is very much what I wanted to talk about tonight. We need to talk about the future. And talking about the future is not just talking about sustainability, but it is also talking about sustainability. It is very difficult today to talk about sustainability without talking about balance, without an equilibrium, something that is that will give us the durability we need. La société durable, le futur sera durable où il n'y aura pas de futur. Et ça me paraît un point extraordinairement important. Si nous voulons continuer à faire des choses pour l'humanité, we have to talk about sustainability. So how do you, when I used to say that to the people in business, because after having done my MBA at INSEAD and after having studied business, I did not study science, I studied business. And yes, I know business is not a science, but anyway, I studied that. And when I came to the different business places where I used to hang out, and I used to say, well, you know, guys, what do we do about nature? Nature is important. How can we, you know, nature is the support system, is a life support system on Earth, and if we lose it, you know, we're not going to go very far. Humanity without nature is just an encumbrance, you know, a short-term story. So people used to tell me, oh yes, André, you're absolutely right, absolutely, we need to do something about nature, it's important, but let us do business first, and once you make some money, we will give you some for your birds in the Camargue. Yeah? What's important is making money. Making money, the short-term profit maximization. Every decision we take in business has to be around how can we make the biggest margin, the biggest amount of money. Because after all, that's success, isn't it? Professionalism is making money. I find that incredibly small as a platform to define success. For me, success is happiness. Success is being in cohabitation with other people, is sharing people, is being able to look together towards the sustainability I tried to describe before. So I did have a little bit of a mission which came onto me to try to explain to my friends in business, because there are some brilliant people in business, tell people in business, you know, it's a good idea to think about the future. And telling my friends in research, telling mes amis scientifiques avec qui je parle régulièrement, leur dire, tu sais, les gens qui sont dans le business, c'est pas des méchants, c'est des bons. They're also nice. They just don't understand the world as we understand it, and vice versa. You in research, and in particular in nature conservation, you have to understand that if you do not have a recurring cash flow, you are not sustainable. So we need to combine the two. And that's why I'm so excited that there is in Geneva now this Building Bridges conference. Because there suddenly, we talk to the finance community and we say to the finance community, help us to save the world. And the finance community is saying, well, of course we want a future. Of course we want to go on being able to manage funds for the rest of the planet. Today I heard this amazing statistic that apparently 1/3 of all impact investments on the planet goes via Geneva. Okay, it means we have to define impact investment, of course, but anyway, I thought the statistic was very interesting. And for me, this collaboration between what business is and what conservation is a particularly important dimension. So I am now at the age of 63. Already admitting that in public is takes quite a lot of, and I can see around me that there is slowly, but rapidly now, I mean, it started slowly, but it's increasing, une réalisation que le monde va changer. Si nous ne faisons pas quelque chose, si nous ne continuons pas systématiquement à détruire la planète sur laquelle nous sommes, we are not going to have a very long future on the planet. Now, an economist friend of mine says, we use nature because it's for free, you know, clean air, fresh water, forest, doesn't cost much. And we lose it because it's irreplaceable. Once we've lost it, it's finished. Over the past 60 years, we have lost 67% of vertebrate species on the planet. Now, that's WWF's Living Planet report. 67% of vertebrate species have disappeared. These are species which are never going to come back. You know, extinction is forever. The climate is the one we talk about most today. But the climate, and we were just discussing that among our neighbors, the climate is something we can manage. In 50, 60, 70 years, we will probably find again a range of CO2 emission which we can live with as humanity. But this 67% of species, they're gone. I'm just letting that sink a little bit because I think that's something that we need to keep to mind. So let's stop it. Let's stop the rot. Let's make sure that from now on we can continue to construct something where we are going to be able to create the prosperity, the sustainable prosperity we need going forward. Business is very good at executing plans. Business is very good at creating entrepreneurship. And again, les exemples qu'on a vus au Impact Hub les ont montrés aujourd'hui. We looked at 5 plans in this afternoon, which I thought were absolutely outstanding. So we need innovation. We need innovation. Entrepreneurship is innovation. Business is the part of the solution. The only thing we have to do is to change the way we account success. As long as success is only the short-term profit maximization, we are literally grabbing our own, digging our own grave. Yes, that's what I meant. Not grabbing our own dig, sorry. And so we need to make sure that we reform that system. So in Glasgow, 3 weeks ago, we announced the creation of the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standard Board, and there is now a real push across the whole industry to try to measure what sustainability could look like so that we can compare it from company to company. And that, I think, is something that is going to be important for our companies to be able to manage their impact and not just their investments. What we really do need, in simple terms, is a decision tool. How do we decide how much money we allocate? How do we decide how we allocate assets? How do we decide how we manage the risk? You know, this is something that we have to look at in details, and we need a measure to be able to do that. If we only look at the discounted cash flows and the residual values, we're not going to get there. So business is a force for good, and it's part of the solution. And I know I can tell that with absolute consequence because I happen to be on both sides of the equation. In the past 60 years, the population of the planet has gone from 3 billion, just about 2.7, to nearly 8. We are going to be 10 billion before I die, I hope. And so, or maybe I shouldn't hope. And that is something that we have to deal with. We are going to have to produce much more with less, because there is going to be less per person. And that's something that deserves thinking. And I'm just bringing it together with the argument I did before, which is, you know, there is no future if there is no sustainability. The future will be very short if we do not bring in an element of replicability and sustainability. And if we don't do it, if we don't do it fast, because we're talking about 2030 as an agenda for the SDGs, that's great. That's in 8 years' time. In the meantime, a lot of the dimensions we're measuring now will have changed again. So we need to be able to adapt all the time. And that's one of the reasons I'm so glad that Glasgow has now said that the NDC commitment have to be actualized every year and not every 5 years, as was the case in the past. Anyway, I was told that somebody in the audience would tell me when I only have 2 minutes left. Nobody has, so I'm continuing. I hope not. I hope not. So did you do that?
But it's okay. We don't interrupt under Hoffman.
No. So it's just as a conclusion, if a bit of experience and age gives me the opportunity to make a couple of statements about humanity at large, it strikes me that the way we are organized at the moment, the way we are trying to sort of move forward, is a model of the past. The pandemic has demonstrated how incredibly fragile our system is. Here we are, the humanity, the Anthropocene, we dominate everything. A little virus comes and suddenly, everything stops. Surely we can invent a system that's a little bit more robust than this. But if you want to save nature, if you want to save the planet, if you want to save humanity, we're going to have to deal with everything at the same time. We're going to have to deal with the social capital, the way we interrelate to each other. We're going to have to deal with the human capital, individual talent, and we're going to have to deal with nature at the same time. And it's the use of these three capitals together and the understanding of the interdependencies, how much does social system depend on nature, how much does nature depend on talent. It's when we understand the functioning between these three capitals that we will get to a measure that really means something. Because at the moment we only measure the result of this. And the result of this is too narrow. The world is much more complex than this. So in order to be able to do that, to save nature, we need to sort out humanity. We need to make sure that we have a more inclusive and more stakeholder-driven type of environment rather than just concentrating onto the creation of values. We need to tone down aggressivity. We need to tone down violence, which dominates our society. And we need to push forward diversity, biodiversity, but diversity also in terms of long term. Only if we do that will we be able to really have an impact onto the sustainability we'll strive for. And so what I'm telling you tonight, and that would be my conclusion, it will only work if we define a new social contract. What do we owe to each other? What can I do for you? What can you do for me? What do you have to do for me? And that has to do with every single step of life. How do we go to school? How do we educate? How do we die? I mean, I'm going to be gone not too far. If I have to die in a hospital, I'm not particularly keen on this. How do we reorganize society in a way which will bring stability? And if you can go home and think about this and help us all together to collectively to collaborate into a new model, I think that's already 80% of the battle. Well, this time as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andre. What a perfect story to set the stage for what regenerative finance actually is. Finance that does not harm the planet, but makes it stronger and healthier, along with our social systems too. Andre, you also underscored the importance of unlearning the way we do business, reevaluating how humankind defines success, and how we measure value and what we value. We must incorporate 3 different things. Hopefully I'm remembering them right. Is the social capital, the human or talent capital, and natural capital. So how can we rebuild this system? Up to this point, the planet has too often been left out.
That's quite right. No, but it's true. We oftentimes kind of have this impression that we speak about another planet as if we were not the ones inhabiting this planet. And the idea of this triple bottom line that perfectly works in English with the people, planet and prosperity. Kind of like works in French as well. Planète, people, prospérité. But it is about time to bring back accountability on the table. But do you know which other word actually reminds me the letter P? Actually, if I tell you Costa Rica, yeah, and it starts with P, you say? Pura vida, papi! Correct, pura vida, the pure life, the simple life. Et l'entrepreneur que je m'apprête à inviter sur scène a amené ce soir l'esprit, la fougue de cette idée de pura vida dans nos vies. Bienvenida, Mariola. Por favor, acércate. Un aplauso para Mariola, por favor. I understand that both your French and Kaylee's French is actually almost native.
Sure,
So
almost.
I know. So I will just exceptionally and allow that for the public to continue in English.
Okay, thank you.
So Costa Rica accounts actually for only 0.03% of the Earth's surface, but it contains, however, nearly 6% of the world's biodiversity. So it's more than pura vida. Its natural wealth, both in species and ecosystems, is partly explained by its geographical position at the crossroads of two continents, home to more than 500,000 species, so that's the ones you mentioned before that are still alive, Andre. Mariola, P, yes, is definitely for pura vida, pero P me suena como a papaya, ¿no? So how that biodiversity influenced you and your childhood to become today with Sun Spectra such a climate hero? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here. Yeah, so my name is Mariola, as Andre was telling you. And actually, to be honest, I don't know if I'm a little bit more excited or actually nervous to be here today. A couple of days ago, actually, I found out I was talking in here, so I'm doing my best. Just bear with me. So when I got the email that I was talking here, they asked me, like, what is my relationship to nature? And my mind just went to one specific word. Like, if I ask you right now what nature means to you, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, for me, that word was farm. Growing up in Costa Rica, I went every weekend to my farm that is in the mountains of Costa Rica. And I have a lot of cousins that are roughly my same age, so all our parents just told us, like, go outside and play. I think they were just trying to get rid of us, but yes. So we were a lot of kids, so there had to be an adult present because kids equal chaos. So my father was the one who always accompanied us while we were outside playing. So he developed like several activities for us to do while we were playing. One of those activities was actually planting flowers. I think my dad was the first one who taught me what taking care of nature meant for him. I'm the youngest and the only girl in my family. I have two older brothers that both are engineers. So I think that people have always expected me to fill into those shoes. Like when we were in high school, where we were all in the same high school, so all my professors were like, oh, you're the sister of Esteban and Fernan, so you'll be an easy case. Ah, thank you. So this is actually my father and I and my cousins at our farm, yeah. So, yes, like I was telling you, like
all my professors just expected me to achieve what my brothers had achieved before me. But I know that those comments weren't meant in a harsh way, but they always generated in me that anxiety feeling, will I be able to get those same grades? Will I be able to live to the expectations of my professors? Will I be good enough? And I think that thought has accompanied me ever since. I began college. I'm also an engineer. I'm a chemical engineer. And for the first 2 years of my my career, something was quite not fitting in. I felt deep inside that something wasn't quite working. And in that moment, I went back to the days I spent at my family's farm. Why? Because when I was a kid growing up, I was a bit of a weird kid, and I collected bugs, a lot of bugs. I had different jars for every bug, and I made for them an ecosystem in those jars. I put flowers, a little bit of grass, water. I changed the plants every day. I had spiders, even I had a cockroach once. And I have a specific story that came to my mind, actually. It was about a ladybug. When I was young, I found a ladybug that had a broken wing. So I decided that I'll take care of it and I'll cure it. So I took the ladybug, I put it in a jar, and I began taking care of it, but the ladybug wasn't getting any better. And so in my mind, I thought, oh my God, yes, I will try just to put her wing back in. So I pushed the wing back in her shell, and as you may know, the ladybug died. And yeah, I did a whole memorial service for the ladybug. And this was the time that I related to when I was in college, because I felt like I was that little kid just cramming everything up and just hoping that everything will work out. But it wasn't working out. But then something clicked. And it clicked right when I got into the lab. In there, I felt secure. I felt at home. I felt like I was that little kid playing with bugs once again. Have you ever gone scuba diving or snorkeling? Hopefully in Costa Rica. Well, when I'm in the water, just floating around and enjoying myself, I see, you get to see, this whole new environment. And you get to see until one point, because of the visibility of the water, right? So there is, this dark and unknown place right ahead of us that we want, I get this uncontrollable feeling, I want to go in there. I want to know what is happening and what is in that part of the ocean. And I think this uncontrollable feeling was the one that drove me on my research and was the one that founded what I present to you as Sunspectra today. So, Sunspectra allowed me to give back to nature a bit. Not just Costa Rica, because my home is not just Costa Rica, it's nature itself. So we took two different problems, agricultural waste and the ocean contamination, and we developed a product that is a papaya-based sunscreen that does not promote coral bleaching, while using our finances to support coral restoration programs around our coasts. So, the next time that you feel the ocean, I hope that you feel this desire to see the change as well. Thank you.
Indeed, your passion for excellence, biodiversity, and papaya, obviously, with the coral reef, led you to materialize this mission. This is definitely a fundamental part of what has driven you forward. You knew that every single ingredient would play a rather important and essential role. So definitely with this process, you are paying a tribute to sustainability as well as circular economy, which we very much value by reducing, namely the waste, and by giving also them useful life with 100% of natural derivatives from papaya, if I understood correctly.
Not 100%, but it's almost like 50% of the product is papaya.
That is already impressive, especially for a Swiss citizen like me that can only barely see papaya from afar, which reminds me of my South American childhood. But I can say that by listening to you, I cannot wait for the summer and the sun to come back to Switzerland and to try Sun Spectra. And I am definitely looking forward also to tasting a new papaya. Thank you so much, Mariela. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you.
And I'm quite sure that our next speaker can also tell quite a lot about sustainability.
No papaya. But up next, we have Marie-Laure Schaffelberger, Marie is the head of ESG and stewardship for the Pictet Group, a leading European investment management firm, where she drives corporate strategy for the Pictet Group's responsible vision across investments and its own assets. She began her career at Pictet in 2007 in the media relations and public affairs team, where she was also responsible for corporate social responsibility initiatives. In 2014, she joined Pictet Assets Management Thematic Equities team as a product specialist, servicing clients across several environmental and social thematic areas. Marie-Laure holds a master's degree in international relations from the Graduate Institute here in Geneva, and also earned a CFA charter holder. The floor is yours.
It's an exercise also in going beyond what I'm used to doing. For those of you who have seen me speak, it tends to be mostly finance, probably a lot drier and a lot less personal than what you'll hear tonight. Actually, when I got the email, I thought, why are they sending this to me? It must have been addressed to someone else. It must be a mistake. I am not an entrepreneur or a pioneer. And then thinking about it, I realized I am affecting change, but I'm doing it within the system. And that's the way that I've chosen so far. The path that I have is this kind of intrapreneur role of changing the system from within. Because if we are to affect change, as André mentioned before, we have to do it across the board, and we have to rethink both within business and outside. So what got me here? And this exercise was really interesting because I never had really thought about what drove me and my passion for sustainability and nature and other human beings. My story starts in Sri Lanka in 1983. This is an image of my beautiful mother in 1983 in front of the clinic where she gave birth. All of her American friends thought she was absolutely nuts not to go back to Switzerland to have her child. But she always maintained that if millions of women could have children in the global south, then she could too. 3 weeks after I was born, Black July kicked off the civil war in Sri Lanka that would ravage the country for decades. We were evacuated by the Red Cross. Later, I realized that my Swiss passport was something with an extreme value that had allowed us to flee a situation that my Sri Lankan brothers and sisters could not. 2.5 years later, we were in Japan. My father's job had brought him there. I had already the luck in my life to sit in front of one of the most beautiful places in the world. This is a lake, crater lake outside of Nikko, just north of Tokyo. And with my parents and my brothers, we went around nature all the time. They loved to hike. We visited beautiful places around the world. And I was so lucky and privileged to be able to do this. In the late 80s, we moved to Indonesia. And it was the first time I realized that I was living in a house with a pool and it was beautiful, and that the little girl across the street was not living in the same conditions as me. This is when it starts to hit me that we have inequalities, and that these inequalities are glaring and that we need to do something about it. Except I'm a child and I can't. We moved to Taiwan then. We then moved as well to Thailand. That's where I finished school. This is an image of a slum called Klong Tue, where I spent about a week as a teenager at the end of my school in Bangkok, doing some community service. And in those moments, I realized that I wanted to work to reduce the gaps, that I wanted to address in the system this glaring inequality and this way of treating nature that was not the same, because we'd essentially outsourced our pollution from the West to other countries and inequality. And so I thought I'll go to the Graduate Institute in Geneva, like my parents had done, study international relations, and I will go work for an NGO, and I will go work for an international organization, and I will change the world. And this is me 14 years later working in banking. And so some of you are thinking, God, she lost her way. But I didn't, because I arrived in banking after university thinking, okay, press relations in a private bank, didn't even know who Pictet was when I did my interview with them. Didn't know who they were. I hadn't grown up here. I grew up in Southeast Asia. And when I'll do 2 years, and then I'll go do some real work to save the planet. And then I realized the sheer amount of capital and the sheer amount of resources that were sitting stranded on accounts all over the world, not being used to create the future we want. And I thought, if everybody that wants to change the system leaves finance, we're in trouble. So I stayed, and I stayed because I can affect that change where I am. And if we are to do the transition that we need to do, and we are to accelerate it, if we want to have a net zero, nature positive, just economy, we need to invest massively, and we need to communicate about it massively. So maybe 3 things to take away from this journey as I was thinking about what I'd leave you with. The first thing is use your voice. Your voice is powerful, and if you stay quiet, you don't actually affect change. In 2011, I actually was working still in communications. I actually helped leverage the internal resources we had to get cluster bombs and landmines removed from our investment portfolios. I was no one. I was a small officer working within our communications department. It shows you that when you use your voice, when you connect people, when you increase knowledge, you can actually affect change anywhere that you are. The second thing is take risk. Because without risk, we don't innovate. Without innovation, we won't change the situation within which we are. So if you have something, go and fight for it. So the role that I have today, I actually sent a memo to the partners saying, we need a role to drive sustainability and to align behind a common ambition across the group. And I was ready to leave if they didn't create this role with the conditions that I thought we needed to get it, to make it really work. Thankfully, they created it. Thankfully, I have a job that I love in a company that values what I'm doing. And the third part is connect relentlessly with people. We heard Santi say it earlier. Connect relentlessly, because it's only through that connection with each other that we're going to actually connect with nature, that we're going to be able to change what we need to change at the speed we need to change it. So my call to you today, tonight, is to do that, right? To find your voice, to take risks, to connect with your people, even people, and mostly with people that don't necessarily think like you, because this is how we're going to affect change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marie-Laure. Thank you for sharing your story about risk, using your voice, and connecting with others intentionally. I think risk is something we can all relate to. The constant question of playing it safe or stepping out for something that's right, but that stepping out's super uncomfortable. Your story reminds me that step does not need to be a huge, valiant feat that seems so far away, and one that we can't reach, but one that can be undertaken in our everyday workplaces. Actions that often take the form, more commonly, of something quiet, a battle within, which is equally as powerful.
Indeed, remaining in the comfort zone, playing it safe, or as you said, stepping out, finding a voice, finding a sound. This is also what our next speaker, who is quite a character, will show you how he also took a bold step. Miklos Vespremi is a climate change consultant, an activist based in Zurich. Growing up in Basel, he started playing piano at the age of 5. He built an international career as a concert pianist, but during his music theory PhD studies at Yale, however, he became aware of the true impact of climate change. He began devoting his entire existence to fighting this climate crisis, and today he works as a climate change and human rights consultant and with the Swiss Youth for Climate, whilst completing his MBA at the University of St. Gallen. Bienvenido, Miklos. And
Nothing happens. This is music without a subject. It is the gaze of the deep serene resting upon the ever-changing wave patterns of the ocean. There is no emotion, just the swelling of a tide that will again subside somewhere else in this infinite expanse of water. What you just heard was an extract from Become Ocean by John Luther Adams, who commented, "Life on Earth first emerged from the sea. As the polar ice melts and the sea level rises, we find ourselves facing the situation that we may literally once again become ocean. The last time our atmosphere had today's levels of CO2, sea levels were 30 meters higher than today. By the end of the century, we will probably add enough CO2 to the atmosphere to raise it to heights not seen since sea levels were 80 meters higher. We are quickly recreating that world here and now. Every Swiss person, as a result of his or her average CO2 emissions, contributes just enough to global warming to melt about 120 milliliters of water per minute. That is water melting from distant polar ice caps and from glaciers not far from here. In other words, since I began this speech about 2 minutes ago, I'm responsible for melting this much ice. We, 200 people in this room tonight, will ultimately be responsible for melting about 5,000 liters of ice just by us spending time here. That's approximately the volume of a small car. Think about that when you drive home tonight. But we can change that. We can begin to change and transform the world's financial systems, beginning with Switzerland's, to stop contributing to the world that Become Ocean depicts. Scientists estimate that we have precipitated so many extinctions that it will take the planet 25 million years to recover pre-Anthropocene levels of biodiversity. This is music to that stillness of a planet that has regained its balance after having lost so much of its life. Become Ocean is about a mostly physical world in which lunar tides and planetary storms are what create variety, not the tumblings of the creatures that once inhabited those places. It is this solitude of a world in which emotional beings with all their fears and worries no longer exist. Listening to this music, this vision of untouched nature, of no longer touched nature, is profoundly beautiful, until we realize we will not be there to witness it. It is this intensity of feeling that inspired me to leave behind a career in music and devote my life to fighting climate change. Today, I am a climate change consultant and activist at Swiss Youth for Climate. As the composer of Become Ocean put it, music is an invitation to the listener to become more fully present. If we can imagine a culture and society in which we each feel more fully responsible for our own place in the world, then we may be able to bring that culture and society into being. I hope this music has done this for you tonight. It is in your hands now.
Just imagine that you are the only people left on the planet. How would it make you feel? What would you do? Now, look around you. You can look around you. How the interaction with people change? Would you expect more from them? Or would you be more grateful to have them? How would you interact with nature? Would you go and explore? Or would you be scared and hide? I remember being in a place where preparation for war were our daily bread. Sometimes it felt like it's the only reality. Sometimes it felt it's the only future. And having in mind people who I care about, who suffer, it made me feel overwhelmed, frustrated, angry. I felt hopeless. I didn't know, what is my role? What can I do? I would go to nature, to forests, and spend hours and hours observing birds, listening to them, talking to trees, complaining a lot. As I felt alone and not understood, the nature just took me as I am. I felt the connection. I felt the hope that nature was giving me. I felt that I have someone to talk to. Being among nature gave me also an understanding of how humility is important for us to be for others. It also made me understand what is my role in society. And my role in society is to serve, to be servant towards you, because without you, I'm nothing. And as we are together, to be servant to nature, because without nature, we are nothing. And I would like to share with you a poem, and with this poem, I would like to share with you a moment to connect with yourself, to connect with people who you have around you, to understand what they mean to you. Give yourself this moment of interaction and some moment of peace, the peace I got when I was in forest. It could be too hard to believe that it's true. It could be too brave to believe in perfume. Perfume of your smile, perfume of your voice. It could be too brave to believe in own choice. And even if it's inside of the dream, and even if it's only a seam, my feelings are like pureness with the wings, which are taking me on road trip without any fears. We are here together. We are there alone. We are trying to fulfill with energy this word. We have never thought of having this inside. Maybe we were closed for awareness of the mind. But our willing is to spread. But our willing is to change. And that's what we've got as a sign of being brave. I don't want to stop believing in this day when our hands together will make here a better place. Or maybe it just happened when we both have met, because I have this feeling of being on the right way. I don't want to stop believing and remembering this day when our hands together made here a better place. Thank you.
She does not believe in boundaries, and she doesn't believe that they are needed. She thinks that we are all humans, aren't we? And as such, we are indeed part of nature. We are all making mistakes, and we're all looking for something. We're all breathing. Although our true nature is to be together, to create together, and to share together. She believes that what we mean for ourselves, we mean for the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Kamila Czok. Dziękuję bardzo. And thank you as well, Miklos, for that beautiful and poetic presentation. As we were listening to the music, the poetry, we thought about this quote, again from Campbell, saying, a hero is someone that has dedicated his life for something bigger than herself or himself. And if I'm not mistaken, that's exactly what the two examples gave us tonight. So thank you so much.
And next we'll have a speaker who also dedicated her life to something beyond herself. With a scientific and public policy background, Nicole Schwab started her career working on health policy in the Andes for the government of Bolivia and the World Bank. Before returning to Europe to become founding director of the Forum of Young Global Leaders, which she currently chairs. In 2009, Nicole co-founded EDGE Certified Foundation, a business certification standard for gender equality in the workplace, which today works with over 250 multinational companies across 40 countries. She then served as a consultant and strategic advisor to nonprofit organizations at the intersection of environment and gender, including National Geographic's Society Campaign for Nature. She also writes. Her writing includes an award-winning novel, The Heart of the Labyrinth. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here today. I almost didn't make it. I'm injured. And I'm counting on the regenerative capacity of my body, which luckily is going quite well. And I thought, isn't this an apt metaphor for talking about the planet and where we are today? I spent my life also, my childhood, growing up in nature, and a lot of time in the mountains, in the glaciers. Thank you, just in case. Thank you very much. And this, of course, is not the Swiss Alps, it's Greenland, where I had the great privilege to go a couple years ago. But I chose this picture because it translates really well this sense of awe I have always felt in front of the natural world. A sense of these immense forces, geological forces that have shaped us, this intricate web of life, and at the same time, this great sense of fragility, as we were just reminded, to lose the balance that we have enjoyed for thousands of years. And so as I grew up, I had a very intimate relationship with life and learning the language of the trees, the language of the rivers, the language of the glaciers, and feeling a very deep sense of interdependence with all of life, something that was a very felt sensation. But as I grew up, I became a scientist, I studied public policy, economics, and I learned a different language. And I realized that these two languages, which one could say the language of the heart and the language of the mind, were completely disconnected. Today, the world is at a crossroads. We know that we can no longer treat nature as this bounty, this abundance that we will continue to enjoy forever. And in an economic sense, we have now even quantified what that means. If we were to quantify the ecosystem services that nature provides to us, they come to about 1.5 times global GDP. And this appears nowhere on our balance sheets. It's taken completely for granted as if it was to continue forever. But of course, we know that's not true. For those who have read the Dasgupta review that came out this year on the economics of biodiversity, you will have seen that in a short period of 1992 to 2014, while we doubled built capital, our infrastructure, our roads, while we increased human capital by 13%, both of those per capita, in that same time period, natural capital dropped by 40%, again per capita. And it doesn't take an economist to understand that this doesn't make any sense. So I think it's time that we leave behind some of these obsolete systems on which we have built our economies, our companies, our societies, and that we start to transition to a regenerative economy that will be sustained by regenerative financial systems. And this is totally possible. We now have examples, we have pathways, but what it needs first and foremost is a change of mindset. I work a lot with trees. We're running the Trillion Trees project, and I was connected to an organization called Tree Sisters. And they've been developing an ethical tree planting code, talking to dozens of different indigenous peoples. And when they ask them, well, how do you decide where you're going to restore, like how you manage your land, they will say, ask the land. The land will tell you what it wants. And today is really a time where we have to start to bring together these different perspectives. On one hand, we can embed natural capital accounting into the way we think of our business, into the way we measure risks. And we know that $44 trillion of GDP, about half of global GDP, is at risk because of nature loss. So both in the language of economics and in this other language, which is a more intuitive language of relationship with the earth and with all the other beings that inhabit this planet, we know there is another way, and we can start to bring these different languages that are so different, we can start to bring them together.
This will take what we call a nature positive economy. And we talk a lot about net zero, but as André mentioned, of course, we have two different crises that we need to address: climate change and biodiversity loss. And nature positive is about not just not doing harm, it's about changing the mindset of who we are and moving from a species that is depleting and destroying with every purchase, with every consumption, with everything that we do, to actually becoming a civilization that can restore and regenerate with every action, every purchase. Imagine what that would look like. There are many examples today already of what this means. We've heard from one in the room, but we've also been running these Trillion Tree Challenges to try to find the new generation of entrepreneurs. We call them ecopreneurs. These are entrepreneurs that put the regeneration and restoration of nature at the heart of their business model. And I will just give you two brief examples. In Niger, Joseph, and Niger is the country, one of the countries that's ranked as the hardest for entrepreneurs. And yet, Joseph created a company called Sahara Sahel Foods that brings back native tree crops, which have higher nutritional value, creates livelihoods, restores ecosystems, and is not quite breaking even because it is so challenging, but is on the journey to get there. It is possible. Similarly, in Peru, Sophia created Shiwi with the objective as a business. The business's mission is to restore harmony between humans and the planet. What if all of our businesses had that as a mission? Wouldn't it be beautiful? And what she does is she encourages consumption of products from natural protected areas in Peru, from the forest, honey, cacao, nuts. Let us take these as an inspiration. And I would like to invite you, as you leave the room tonight, to reflect on what is the next step in this transition towards a nature positive economy. When you make your next decision, and it could be a daily purchase of food, or it could be a major investment decision, or it could be a decision affecting your business, how can you take the first step towards a business, an economy, a society, a civilization that is no longer depleting, but that is restorative and regenerative? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nicole. I feel like you unpacked this regenerative finance concept in a more tangible way. And your story allows us to consider how we can take that next step in how we work and consume. I also loved how you brought it back to the heart and the language of the heart to match or align with the language of the mind, because how often are we just stuck in our minds? And then you used the line, I think you said from an indigenous group, ask the land, it will tell you what it wants. Now my question was, are we willing to listen? And can we use our minds, our busy minds, to stop and build a new system for the heart and the land?
Listening to the heart, listening to the land, and what about listening to the air? Gordian Jovanovski is a North Macedonian eco-activist, precisely. After the eco-entrepreneur, there is also activism on different sides, and brilliantly mixed with a software engineer, working on raising awareness about air pollution through technology. As a matter of fact, in 2014, he created the Air Care mobile app, which uses open data to visualize air pollution. It's actually an app that was also designed to save his own country and the rest of the world from this invisible enemy. Back then, its launch triggered nationwide protests in North Macedonia and Serbia by citizens simply demanding that local governments take more serious actions against that issue. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordian.
Hi everyone. My name is Gorian, and as it was already mentioned, I fight air pollution because I like to breathe this. We were up in the mountains this past weekend, and I filled my lungs with fresh, clean air because this is what I really like, and I want the world to be able to kind of breathe this as well. But that's not the case everywhere, as probably you can see this coming. But to take a step back, and we all have to show pictures of when we were young, so this is me, that little dude. When I was very young and Christmas time was coming, it was time to put the Christmas tree up, to put all the little pretty lights. What my parents did was they would buy me a present, of course for Christmas, but it would be one present. It's not 2, 3, 10. And with the rest of the money that they had for presents, what they would do was they would buy more toys, take some of the old ones that I don't use, wrap them up, and we would take all of these toys to an orphanage. And in this orphanage, my parents would hold a raffle for all the kids that were not getting presents for Christmas. And as every child would go and get a number for their present, it would be my job to take this present and bring it over and give it to the child. What my parents were teaching me was, you're supposed to give back. Don't expect, don't take, no matter if it's Christmas. Find ways of giving back. And in a way, they informed me about a certain situation, which would later trigger me to act. A couple of years later, stuff was happening back home, which was not pretty, and my parents decided, let's check out the US. Let's see what's going on there. My uncle was living there. It's a nice country. So we fly over there. I'm still yay high, 2nd grade, and I know zilch English. 0. Cat, dog, hello. That is my vocabulary in English, and I get sent to public school. Good luck, figure it out. So I walk in the first day, super confused, not sure what's going on. And of course, all the kids run up to you and they start asking you questions, and you're the new kid. I freak out. I really have no clue what's going on. I don't know the language. It's scary. And as I'm told, I started to cry. I told the teacher with whatever little English I had, I go home. She takes me by the hand. She brings me to the principal's office. They call my mom. They give me my mom. Talk. My mom asks, what's the problem? I don't know, I can't understand. She says, okay, listen, you're gonna practice one sentence today in one sentence only. I do not understand you. She's gonna keep repeating that, so everything's gonna be fine. So I go back very happy to the classroom, and everyone walks up to me. He's like, hi, my name is Gary. And I'm like, I don't understand you. Like, how old are you? I don't understand you. But after a year or two, I got hold of the language. I forgot Macedonian. I had to relearn that one. But what the US school system taught me, something that we still struggle doing back home, was this connection with nature. They brainwashed me into loving nature. One of the good brainwashes that can happen. But we talked a lot about saving the planet, saving the trees, CO2 emissions. A lot of this when you're still yay high. And the beautiful thing about that was you grow up to be this person which still thinks about that. Still thinks about, can I save this planet? Can I do something good? Fast forward, we're back home, moved back, and it's winter. We just came back from outside. We were out with friends, and we romanticized the smell of winter. We have the smell of winter in Skopje, and it's beautiful. It smells like winter. It always reminds you, oh, winter's coming up. Yeah, that's the smell of winter. It's not very pretty and not a good smell to have, but we did not know. We did not know. Maybe my parents informed me to act, but act on what? The US school system taught me about nature and informed me, but how am I still going to act? And suddenly I was sitting around home and I saw this outside and sure, didn't think too much of it. I was doing research for my university, and by complete accident, I figured out that the air quality in my home city of Skopje was polluted 20 times over EU limits. 4 times over Beijing. Of course, it was ridiculous. I reran my code again and again and again just to double check and triple check. And no, my city was being suffocated, no one was talking about it. And all of this time, people were telling me, be informed so you can act. Be informed so you can act. And this light bulb came on. I'm informed. Am I going to act? I was a geek, software engineer, still am, love technology. So I decided, let's put this together, figure out a way of how we can make this work. And I did. I figured it out. It's simple. It's an app on your phone. It tells you how polluted it is outside, but in a very simple, intuitive, effective manner, so you know what you're breathing. I didn't expect the app to be very popular or famous, but it would help me, maybe help my family and my friends, so I put it on Facebook. Yeah, apparently people liked it. It took a year for people to not go from informed to informed and for people to activate. This is us in front of the government building, demanding greener and cleaner air. And it is beautiful because it showed how easy it was for something so simple like an app to get people to take action on a topic that was killing us year over year. Because in my home country, 3,500 lives are lost every year due to air pollution. 3,500 of my co-citizens, of my family, and of my friends. And I don't like that. I think when it comes down to being informed, it is super critical to figure out what you want to do and what kind of action you want to take. I fight for air pollution. I fight for cleaner air so we can breathe and fill our lungs with something nice. But you don't have to. All I need you guys to do, become informed on the topic that you care about and take action. Maybe you like trees. Maybe you like water. I hope you like water. If not, we have vodka. But maybe you like water. Maybe you like air. Maybe you like animals. Anything that you think you can help save, protect, enhance, do it. And please don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till the weekend. Don't wait till Monday. Do it now. Because time is ticking, and we don't have a lot of time. So, let's save this world together. It's the only one we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordian. Indeed, some say that love is a human right, but breathing clean air is definitely another human right. And I guess that, again, tonight we have yet another glaring example of the fact that we take more often than for granted. We just decide tonight that air is important. What is your fight? What is your heartbreak? And this is how I hand you over the floor. Thank you, Gordon.
So hopefully Guillaume can answer that in his own way. I will welcome Guillaume Taylor to the stage as our next speaker. In 2002, Guillaume became a partner of the Pure Pictet Turretini and Company Limited, which is worth more than $3 billion as an investment firm. And in 2010, he founded Quadia, if I'm pronouncing that right, a pioneering impact investment firm. Since 2000, Guillaume's activities have been concentrated on social and environmental finance. He has quite a lengthy bio of achievements here. Guillaume was a co-founder of the Sustainable Finance in Geneva. He was also a member of the steering committee for WWF's International Campaign for a Living Planet. He was also a member of Firmenich Sustainability Advisory Council, and he now presides over the investment committee of Beco Mob, a UK-based nature conservation trust fund. He is the chair of the Bergplaats HRH Princess Irene of the Netherlands Foundation. Guillaume is a treasurer of Foundation Pro Vallet and a board member of the Montagu Foundation, both nature conservation organizations. As a pioneer in this field, he has remained true to himself and to his core values. Today, Guillaume pushes himself even further, embracing the second chapter of this personal journey, in complete alignment with sustainability, and all that beholds while ensuring to learn and grow from this experience in a more spiritual and humane way. Welcome, Guillaume.
So I've been asked to speak in French, donc je passe au français. Et s'il y a des personnes qui ne parlent pas l'anglais, je suis vraiment navré, mais je serais ravi de vous parler après. Donc je soutiens ce qu'a dit André, c'est magnifique, ce Building Bridge et tout cet argent qui se rue vers l'impact investing, vers l'ESG, vers l'investissement responsable. Ce qui m'a permis il y a 2 ans de prendre un peu de retrait. J'ai 56 ans bientôt, dans quelques jours. Mais il y a 2 ans, j'avais 54 ans, j'ai pu transmettre Quadia à une équipe vraiment compétente qui pouvait faire les choses d'une manière technique bien meilleure que moi. Et ça m'a permis de prendre du recul et de continuer mon chemin dans la durabilité, dans le développement durable. Je ne sais pas tellement quel terme utiliser aujourd'hui. Ma mentor, ces 2 dernières années, qui nous regarde de loin, m'a dit « Guillaume, mieux vaut être pour agir qu'agir pour être. Mieux vaut être pour agir qu'agir pour être. » Et cette phrase m'a vraiment, vraiment motivé à prendre ce recul et me concentrer sur moi-même. D'une manière peut-être égoïste, mais pour pouvoir revenir après et faire beaucoup plus. Donc l'être. L'être, c'est, je vais parler de 3 points importants. Première, mon énergie féminine. Donc j'ai été élevé par 2 femmes qui m'ont transmis beaucoup d'énergie féminine. L'énergie de l'harmonie, de l'amour, de la mutualisation, de l'empathie. Et après, je suis parti à l'âge de 10 ans aux États-Unis. La scolarité aux États-Unis m'a appris à être un homme dominant, performant. Mon fils, tu dois être numéro 1. Donc j'ai suppressé ces énergies féminines. En revenant en Suisse, des années plus tard, en l'an 2000, et c'était le début de mon parcours dans le développement durable, j'ai très vite compris qu'il fallait que je dévoile ces énergies féminines pour pouvoir perdurer dans ce milieu, pour avoir les bonnes énergies. C'était vraiment important pour moi. Et je l'ai fait. Ça a pris du temps, mais je pense qu'aujourd'hui, j'ai réussi à trouver un équilibre entre ces énergies féminines et les énergies masculines. Le deuxième point de cet être, c'est la conscience individuelle. Pour moi, c'était essentiel de développer cette conscience individuelle pour aller vers l'instinct. L'instinct, c'est ce qui allait me permettre de vraiment mieux comprendre les enjeux sociétaux, les enjeux environnementaux. Je ne voulais pas qu'on me dise comment agir, qu'est-ce que je dois penser, parce qu'il fallait que j'apprenne. Je n'ai jamais été très bon à apprendre, je n'ai pas une grande mémoire. Donc si je voulais fonctionner, c'était par les tripes. Et ça, c'était essentiel pour moi. Et quand je pense à la mer, je pense la mer avec accent grave, RE, à l'animal sauvage, à la nature. Il fonctionne à l'instinct. Ce serait terrible de dire à une mère, voici un livre et vous allez apprendre comment être une mère. N'utilisez pas votre instinct. Dire à l'animal sauvage qui, finalement, n'a pas un savoir, mais il a un instinct, il ne détruit pas son environnement. Et la nature, bien sûr, elle vit que par l'instinct, mais c'est un instinct magnifique et c'est pour ça qu'on est là. Donc, bien sûr, on ne doit pas détruire cela. Troisième point de l'être, c'est la notion de la balade. En anglais, to wander. Et j'ai eu cette chance pendant 2 ans de me balader. Pas physiquement nécessairement, mais juste ne pas avoir d'objectif dans mes pensées, ne pas avoir un point de départ, ne pas avoir un point d'arrivée. J'ai eu le luxe du temps aussi. Mais cette notion de se balader, de permettre de voir d'autres solutions. Il n'y a pas qu'une solution. On cherche souvent une solution. One size fits all. Il n'y en a pas. Et peut-être qu'il y a une solution qu'on ne voit pas aujourd'hui. Et donc, il faut qu'on garde les yeux ouverts, qu'on partage, comme a dit ma collègue, qu'on regarde autour de nous. Et peut-être on verra quelque chose qui nous permettra d'aller beaucoup plus loin. Notion de se balader. Tout ça s'est traduit dans l'action, agir. Et pour moi, sur 3 piliers. Le premier, quand j'ai créé Quadia, il faut que j'aille vite maintenant, j'ai 2 minutes. Quand j'ai créé Quadia, j'ai fait une erreur, une grande erreur qui a coûté, mais heureusement, on est toujours là. Je suis passé d'un investissement traditionnel à un investissement d'impact. Je me suis dit, c'est très bien, au lieu d'investir là, j'investis là et je suis un investisseur responsable. Mais j'ai pris avec moi tout mon conditionnement, mon appris de la finance d'avant. Et ça a été une leçon qui était vraiment lourde pour moi. J'aurais dû me découdre complètement et me reconstruire pour passer à cette nouvelle finance. Et ça, je l'ai fait maintenant, je continue à le faire, et c'est très important de le faire. La finance d'impact, la finance responsable n'est pas la même que la finance traditionnelle. Donc réinventez-vous. Deuxième point, c'est la mesure d'impact, qui est toujours très important dans notre milieu. Et c'est la capacité de regarder toute une chaîne de valeur. Et il ne faut pas changer seulement ce qui est en amont, en gardant un cadre de référence identique qu'aujourd'hui, parce que c'est le cadre de référence qui nous donne le confort, la performance, le succès, l'aspect temps. On doit aussi changer le système en amont. Si on ne change pas le système en amont, on ne va pas réussir en aval. Et le troisième point, je vais aller vite, c'est mon narratif dans la durabilité. Comment est-ce que je vois les solutions de la durabilité? Alors, ce sont les miennes, mais j'y crois. Alors, j'ai pensé à une phrase qui s'appelle « source economics ». C'est retourner à la source, à l'intention initiale d'un système. Je parle vite de la finance parce que je fais partie de ce milieu. La finance est supposée être était un moyen pour soutenir les entreprises, la substance, qui génèrent un produit ou un service pour le bien commun. On est malheureusement à l'envers aujourd'hui. La finance devient la substance et l'entreprise le moyen pour la finance de dégager un rendement. On peut avoir ces modèles du monde à l'envers, où la substance devient le moyen la substance, dans l'éducation, dans la gouvernance, dans la comptabilité, dans la taxation. Il y a des exemples partout. Donc dans mon esprit, on ne connaît pas la solution vers la durabilité, mais si on revient à l'intention initiale de quelque chose, je pense naturellement on arrivera à cette durabilité. Voilà, j'ai abusé de mes 2 minutes, mais c'est mon histoire, elle m'appartient. Votre histoire vous appartiendra. C'est la vôtre, on a chacun notre histoire, mais je crois que c'est très important d'avoir cette histoire et de pouvoir continuer dans cette durabilité. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you for your story and also making me practice my French. Thank you for sharing a story that makes us reflect on our own journey with nature and how we are acting on these beliefs as individuals and heroes of our own stories. In order to make the greatest impact on our external worlds and as a collective, we need to first look inside. Your story reminded me of a quote by the great Persian poet, Rumi. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. We should go beyond becoming environmentally conscious because this is the status quo and it's the in thing, and because we're here. We want to be intentional, thoughtful, about how we, as creative individuals, can contribute to a more regenerative planet in our own uniquely and powerful ways.
Thank you so much. And last but by no means the least, ce qui me permet aussi de repasser en français, notre dernière, mais non pas la moindre, intervenante est aussi, elle, à sa façon, une héroïne du climat. Née en Zambie, avocate et politicienne suisse, membre du Parti des Verts des Suisses, élue au Conseil d'État pour le canton de Genève en mars de cette année. Elle est aujourd'hui désormais en charge du département de l'économie et de l'emploi. Et évidemment, la toute première question, c'est de se dire quel a été son rapport à la nature, à elle, comment est-ce que ce rapport a-t-il évolué au niveau personnel, et finalement, comment est-ce que cette histoire, depuis la Zambie, en arrivant à Genève, lui a permis justement, peut-être, de développer une nouvelle vision pour Genève. Mesdames et messieurs, Fabienne Tischer.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonsoir. Je suis très heureuse d'être là ce soir, un peu gênée. J'ai pas l'habitude de parler de moi. Ça peut paraître un peu surprenant pour une politicienne, mais curieusement, si je fais souvent des discours, c'est rarement des interventions dans lesquelles je me livre. Alors, vous avez réussi à me faire sortir de ma zone de confort. Merci. C'est un exercice voilà, qui est difficile, assez difficile pour moi, pour que j'ai même eu besoin de prendre quelques notes pour pouvoir suivre le fil de mes pensées. Oui, je suis née en Zambie et c'était un voyage un peu particulier qu'il m'a été donné de faire. Comment est-ce que je me suis trouvée à m'engager pour la nature, pour la durabilité, pour toutes ces choses qui nous réunissent ce soir. Je suis née dans une famille très engagée, et engagée dans les milieux œcuméniques, en Zambie, effectivement, en Afrique du Sud, dans toute l'Afrique australe pendant les années 60, puis dans l'église protestante genevoise. Je suis toujours très fière de dire que ma maman a été la première femme présidente de l'église protestante genevoise, ce qui était un défi à l'époque. Et dans cette famille engagée, j'ai reçu un certain nombre de valeurs. La première, peut-être que j'ai envie de citer, c'est celle de la responsabilité. On est au plein cœur de l'éthique protestante, mais oui, nous sommes responsables de ce que nous faisons, non seulement vis-à-vis de nous-mêmes, mais vis-à-vis des autres et vis-à-vis du monde. Et puis la deuxième valeur qui m'a marquée, c'est celle du service à la communauté. Nous sommes tous ici et nous avons une responsabilité vis-à-vis des communautés auxquelles nous appartenons, et nous devons accorder une partie de nous à se mettre au service de la communauté. Nous appartenons tous à plusieurs communautés. Nous avons des communautés de fait, notre famille, notre pays ou notre réalité. Et puis nous avons des communautés de choix, celles qui sont composées de gens qui partagent nos combats, nos valeurs ou auxquels nous nous identifions. Eh bien, d'une manière ou d'une autre, ce que j'ai appris pendant toute mon enfance, c'est que c'est normal, c'est naturel de se mettre au service de sa communauté. Et c'est ainsi qu'à la maison, j'ai souvent vu défiler des grandes figures des mouvements d'indépendance africains, du mouvement anti-apartheid. J'ai fait ma première manifestation pour la paix avec ma maman alors que moi j'étais adolescente. Et puis finalement, les mots de justice sociale et de solidarité ont bercé mon quotidien. Eh bien, d'une enfance et d'une adolescence pareille, forcément, je me suis à mon tour engagée dans diverses causes associatives, essentiellement des engagements syndicaux, des engagements féministes, des engagements liés à la période de la vie que je traversais dans les associations d'étudiants, etc. Et puis, à un moment donné, j'ai eu envie de passer à une autre forme d'engagement. Un engagement qui ne soit plus sectoriel, mais un engagement qui soit plus global, plus complet. Et j'ai voulu m'engager politiquement. C'était dans le courant des années 2000. J'étais dans l'intervalle devenue mère de famille. Et je me heurtais toujours à la même question. Quelle histoire mes enfants auront-ils à raconter à leurs enfants ? Est-ce que le monde de mes petits-enfants aura été tellement dégradé que les souvenirs que mes enfants voudront leur raconter n'auront aucun sens pour eux. Et je me suis sentie responsable devant mes enfants, devant mes petits-enfants futurs, j'en ai pas encore. Hein. Je me suis sentie une responsabilité d'agir pour la planète, d'agir pour notre environnement, d'agir tout simplement pour la vie. Et voilà, je me suis mise au service de ma communauté. Et cette manière de me mettre au service de ma communauté m'a conduite à la fonction que j'exerce aujourd'hui. Et aujourd'hui, je suis ministre de l'économie et de l'emploi à Genève. Et mon quotidien est d'œuvrer pour le bien commun des Genevoises et des Genevois. Alors nous qui sommes là ce soir, nous savons bien que les Genevois viennent du monde entier et pas forcément de Genève. Et c'est pourquoi mon action ne peut être que locale et globale à la fois. Localement, peut-être qu'on peut passer à l'image suivante parce que c'est une image qui va nous permettre de prendre un peu de hauteur et avoir un regard. Elle est peut-être pas, elle n'a pas été prise, ah non. Non, j'en ai que 2. Ok, alors c'était une image du bol d'or sur le Léman vue du Jura et c'était une belle image justement, de prendre un peu de hauteur, un peu d'air. Localement, je m'engage pour que les entreprises genevoises quittent et renoncent à un modèle économique basé sur une vision du 19e siècle, une économie linéaire fondée sur produire, consommer, jeter. Et qu'elles adoptent une vision au contraire du 21e siècle, qui est celle que nous voulons promouvoir ici. C'est l'économie circulaire fondée sur une éco-conception, sur des productions qui soient peu gourmandes en matières premières, en énergie, qui soient réparables, réutilisables, recyclables. Et pour tout cela, je développe un programme d'action de soutien aux entreprises qui veulent s'engager dans la durabilité et que j'ai l'ambition de mettre en œuvre au cours des prochains mois et années. Sur le plan global, eh bien, j'ai l'ambition de soutenir le mouvement qu'on voit à l'œuvre cette semaine dans Building Bridges, dans toutes ses composantes, dans toutes ses facettes. Nous devons absolument réfléchir à la manière dont nous pouvons changer notre impact sur le monde, sous l'angle du climat, sous l'angle de l'énergie, sous l'angle de la biodiversité. Bref, dans la mise en œuvre des objectifs de développement durable, sous l'angle du E, du S, du G, mais aussi du N. Et je pense là à la responsabilité numérique des entreprises, qui est pour moi une question très importante. Nous allons aujourd'hui, dans les années à venir, devoir nous poser des questions, faire des choix, de nouveau nous engager pour que le recours que nous allons inéluctablement faire toujours plus aux ressources numériques, eh bien, soit fait de manière éthique, soit fait de manière responsable, là encore dans des aspects climatiques, mais aussi respect de la personnalité, gestion des données. Voilà, je crois que Genève a un rôle particulier à jouer sur cette ligne. La convergence des compétences et de l'excellence dans le domaine académique, dans le domaine financier, dans le domaine politique, des organisations internationales, crée une sorte de microclimat pour rester sur la thématique climatique. Et il nous appartient à nous, Genevois, de mettre ces particularités au service de la communauté mondiale. C'est notre responsabilité d'y contribuer et je m'y engage. Voilà ce à quoi j'ai la chance et le privilège d'œuvrer tous les jours avec vous, partenaires locaux, internationaux. Et en guise de conclusion, j'aimerais profiter d'être la dernière intervenante pour remercier d'abord les organisateurs, Impact Hub, pour la force et l'intensité des témoignages que chacun et chacune ont apportés ce soir. J'aimerais aussi relever le fait que Building Bridges, c'est cette aventure collective qui nous permet de nous retrouver ensemble, qui réunit beaucoup de gens. J'aimerais un special thanks pour les volontaires, pour les petites mains qu'on ne voit pas, mais qui ont beaucoup contribué pendant toute la semaine à en faire le succès. Et puis, je vous remercie, vous tous participants, parce que grâce à votre votre présence, grâce à la force que nous allons tirer de ce que nous avons reçu cette semaine, eh bien, nous allons à notre tour pouvoir démultiplier l'impact des résultats de cette semaine. Je vous remercie de votre attention et vous souhaite une bonne fin de soirée.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Madame la magistrate. Vous pouvez seulement rester là, ne partez pas plus loin. Choix personnel et engagement personnel, quel que soit le niveau, quelle que soit la fréquence, quelle que soit l'intensité, c'est les mots qu'on retiendra. On peut toutes et tous, chacune et chacun d'entre nous, faire quelque chose. This climate crisis, and it's not just about climate change, happens for all sorts of very complex reasons. But as we saw tonight, thanks to all the interventions, the inspiring speakers, it actually has a huge responsibility on our heads, and it is now our choice to decide what world we want to live in tomorrow.
And before I close, I just want to let everyone know that there will be drinks and a jazz band playing outside after this and networking. And I wanted to ask all Accelerate 2030 and speakers to stay on to take a group photo. And I wanted to end with a quote from Joseph Campbell and his Hero's Journey writing that inspired this event in the first place. Follow your bliss, and the universe will open doors where there were only walls before. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you.
To each and every single person that made this evening possible. On va appeler tous les speakers sur scène, s'il vous plaît, pour prendre la photo. Et donc, l'apéro est en train d'être servi. Je ne parle pas qu'aux Genevoises et aux Genevois. Ne vous inquiétez pas. There are drinks for everyone. Thank you very much. A lovely evening to you all.
Thank you.